want to talk today about 526. The extension of 526 was planned in the 1970s. All the big cities in the country had embraced the interstate system, had started to plan beltways. You look at Atlanta, you look at Washington D.C. But what we learned from their planning and their implementing beltway highways is that they are still congested and that they drop. 526 was planned to go from 26 to West Ashley by the Citadel Mall and Highway 17 in Sam Rittenberg, where it ends still today, and also then to Mount Pleasant on Johnny Dodds Boulevard and Highway 17. When it ended in West Ashley on Highway 17, there was a plan to extend it further to the James Island connector across Johns Island, so building essentially 2 new bridges to Johns Island, which was and still is a rural area. So we have a growing metropolitan region, but we have an enormous amount of protected rural space on the edge. And so the question is, we have a growing metropolitan region, but we have and why would we want to risk the environmental, the quality of life, and the community detriment that would come with that? The project came about again in 2006 when the county proposed to extend it again from West Ashley to the James Island connector and looked for a source of funding to do so through the State Transportation Infrastructure Bank. Communities that would truly be affected, the communities of Johns Island, James Island, and West Ashley along the Stono River, were not in support of this plan. And we, as an environmental group, recognize the enormous amount of environmental issues with the plan, both in terms of extending highway infrastructure means extending automobile-dependent land uses that are associated with highway development. It means filling wetlands, impacting floodplains, impacting farmland, driving a suburban land use out into a rural area, which again has a lot of air, water quality, and land use implications, and really dividing a community and burdening a community with this heavy infrastructure.
Let's talk about fact. Let's talk about a bad contract that was signed years ago, before I was even on county council, before most of the people on this county council was on council, that ties our hands, that says that if we somehow don't move forward, we could possibly be in breach of a loan. We would possibly be on the hook for close to $12 million. The state could continue building the road without our consent. In our contract, it also states that any shortfalls in money, they committed, I think, $429 million. I see Rick Tapper said, he might know better than we do, how much money's been committed. The SCDOT says that their estimate is $489, that Charleston County taxpayers would be on the hook for whatever overage might exist. No one on here wants you not to have an answer. There are people's homes in the crosshairs of this road. They need to know an answer. Tonight, we're not going to be able to give you an answer, because I'm going to tell you, no matter what we say, it's still up in the air.
Move forward with a no-bill type motion. Yeah, we're at some financial risk. However, if we simply hand this over to the state, we are at great risk that a road will be built. I'm pretty confident if we pass this off to the state, a road will be built. I am of the understanding, based on the public hearings and based on the input I'm getting, that the public doesn't want a road built. So I'm willing to take some financial risk to do what's right in principle.
Now, what is now known as the Emancipation Proclamation, the African American was freed from what we call chattel slavery. But nothing was given to make that freedom in terms of something meaningful. He was left there illiterate, landless, penniless, with nothing but the ragged shirt on his back and perhaps no shoes on his feet. And at the same time, America was giving away millions and millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest to the peasants from Europe. But it didn't give the African American anything, even though he had worked the land for 244 years. Now, why would I say that? Because of a superhuman effort Between 1863 with nothing and to 1910, the African American had amassed 10 million acres of land, most of it in the South. And by 1923, he had amassed 23 million acres of land. But today, it has now dwindled. The African American own now fewer than 1 million acres of land and part owner of another 1 million acres of land. And this came about because of unfairness, injustice, chicanery, bamboozlement, and some of my local, state, and federal government. Now, if you look at I-26, and I've said this before, to build I-26, every African American community was slashed. Every last one from Midland Park to Silver Hill to downtown. And my saying all this, I am too afraid that if 526 is built, poor people, particularly African Americans, and less advantaged whites' property is going to be taken away from them. I lived in the country for about 7 years, a place called Oakland, South Carolina. And there was this dog, jet black. He was a mutt dog. And on one occasion, I went fishing, and Jasper was such a great hunting dog, he tried to catch fish. Now, why did I say all of that? One afternoon, Jasper was going under this wire, and of course, this was during the time of segregation. You know what crossing the line meant. Jasper was about to cross the line, and he yelled, and the man yelled across the field to me and said, "Hey, boy, that dog can't hunt here." And all I'm going to tell the state of South Carolina, when it comes down to I-526, that dog can't hunt here. And the reason is, I think that we will have history on our side that I-526 will not and shall not be built. Not as long as people's property is going to be taken away from you.
Ms. Johnson, I'm sorry. Ms. O'Grady will call the roll.
Ms. Condon?
Aye.
Mr. Darby?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Quayle? Judge Rose?
No.
Mr. Squares?
Aye.
Mr. Summey?
No.
Mr. Price?
No.
The motion is passed 5 ayes.
And I have a real problem. When I'm looking at even potentially addressing a question of privilege based on the fact that Charleston County Council has gone against the public vote, which was approved by a referendum for roads and transportation, to create the county match for funds to complete a number of different projects, including I-526. Say that there's a mass public outcry against this. It's truly not accurate. When I looked at the DOT public comment finding periods, there were 2,733 negative public comments against the I-526. The vetted area impacted by I-526 reflects a population of 174,000 people. That represents 1.5% of the population of Charleston County. And in reality, that is just for the area impacted by the road. In reality, since all of the county districts will be voted in this issue, we're dealing with less than 1% of the population saying they're against this project.
And my feeling is the primary reason for building 526 is the safety of James Island residents, Johns Island, Kiowa, and Seabrook. I was here, I don't know how many of you were, during Hugo, and how horrible it was getting out of town for Hugo. And if we have a disaster, I mean, disasters are occurring everywhere in the world right now. Look at Japan. What if something like that happened to us here? I think that should be the primary concern.
My family's been on Johns Island for 300 years. We don't want to see Johns Island destroyed and ruined and become another suburban city like anywhere in USA. We feel like 526 would totally destroy what's left of the rural farming nature of Johns Island, and we just don't feel like it's the right thing, and it's not going to relieve our traffic on Johns Island. We've been fighting for 15 or 20 years to stop this project. We feel like tonight's hopefully will be the end of it all.
Minorities and disadvantaged whites are taking advantage of disproportionately when it comes down to infrastructure. Because if you look at I-26, every African American community was slashed for the building of I-26, and I'm just terribly afraid that if I-526 were to go through, the same thing will be applicable there, and that's what I'm going to stand for.